unmute myself when I'm talking.
Okay.
That helped last time when I was talking to Alex. So I might have to do that. And then it helps because then I'm just the one who has to remember to unmute, which I'm fairly good at. Fairly. But let's see. I will just keep talking until we make sure that we're on here. Let me see. We should be live. I've got my fancy 2-computer setup going on. My double laptop duty. Oh, there we are. We're live. Oh, this is so exciting. I always love when we go live.
This is my first time ever being, I think, live. Well, definitely live on Facebook. I think I've been live on TV before, but never on Facebook.
Wow. Live on TV, I feel like, is an even bigger deal, right? Because people are just sitting and like sometimes passively taking that in. All right. So we are live. This is super exciting. So we have with us this week Lev Ben-Ezra, who's the executive director of the Amherst Survival Center. They are located in the Mill District. They're our amazing neighbor. We've been watching them just absolutely crush the adaptation time has demanded, and it's been really inspiring for folks who joined us a couple weeks ago expecting to see Lev and instead got to view our awesome conversation with Dan Eidelman, who is on the board of the center as well as a longtime volunteer. And she gave us so much great information, but we're really excited, Lev, that you are here.
Thanks.
So we can just dig in a little bit further to what is going on and what this time has been like for your organization and for you as a leader. So let me start there. I'll turn it over to you. And just if you would be willing to let us into what your process has been like in these last few months, because it has been, let's just say that it's been a lot. How has it been for you? How are you?
Well, thanks so much for having me. Um, it's really interesting. So I started at the Amherst Survival Center in January of 2019, and I will say that in the early stages of COVID planning, there were a few moments where I acknowledged out loud how glad I was that this was on a personal level, that this was happening now and not a year ago, when I was so new to the center, and at least at this point, just much more firmly rooted in our operations and with strong relationships with the team. And I have to say that overall, my experience of managing and leading the center through this transition has been one kind of awe. I am just so incredibly grateful for and inspired by and just awed by the incredible efforts of our volunteers, longtime volunteers who have stepped up in enormous ways, and new
Yeah,
volunteers who came and have become like completely integral parts of our center workings and making it happen, and our staff, and the incredible support from the community. It's been a really, it's been an amazing thing to witness. And certainly being the person who's charged with very appropriately making so many key decisions in terms of ensuring public health and new guidelines and how to create services, and doing that ahead of any guidelines that were coming out from the state and then backing in. It has been one of it's been a period of time that has required an enormous amount of collaboration and an enormous amount of flexibility and adaptability to continue to learn as we go, and just be willing on really a day by day basis to take what's working well and what's not, and figure out what we need to do next, and not get too vested in one way of doing things before we figure out what the next step is.
absolutely. That is such a great point, I think, about responsiveness and the importance of being able to be nimble, which I mean, you all are responding, we're responding already to many different needs, right? I mean, I think a lot of people think about
Yeah.
the center as providing food, but you are providing not only food, but medical resources, clothing, toys, people being able to stop by your free store. And so your ability to be able to respond in this time and continue week by week to sort of check in with what the needs are. How do you personally kind of keep up with everything? What have you found to be valuable as far as, are there certain newsletters or leaders or people in the community that have really
Yeah.
helped you stay in touch with things as they have so rapidly shifted?
Yeah. Well, especially early on, we were, along with everybody, learning the public health information and trying to assess what protocols needed to be put in place. And so, very early on, we established a small COVID response team, a mix of some board members and staff and a volunteer with significant public health expertise, and
That's
just were
awesome.
really reading anything and everything that we could get our hands on, but we were relying on all the same news sources that everyone else was. We were reading every CDC bulletin, and was watching the news and listening to Dr. Fauci, and then reading mass.gov, and then calling Julie Fetterman at the town of Amherst, our director of public health. And so we're just responding to that information and trying to make the best decisions that we could. And you spoke to the really wide array of services and programming that the Amherst Survival Center has held since our inception, and that was definitely that was a very early, very hard decision that we had to make, but was undoubtedly the right one given the circumstances as they continue to evolve. But about a week before the statewide order came out to not allow public restaurants to be open and congregation and those kinds of things, we were just a week ahead of deciding to close our dining room and not have congregate eating. And then, really, as information was coming out about the need for social distancing as a really critical preventative measure, recognized that there was just no way that we could do that in our community store. And so, as that early on decision to focus in on our food and nutrition programs, which are really an absolute core of what we do, a really, really critical need, and then allowed us to
Yeah.
really focus there to do that well, do that safely, and then just over time to continue to build on that and what we're providing in terms of food and nutrition to really be able to help try to meet folks where they're at amidst this time of just really growing hardship for so many.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I definitely on, feeling a little fortunate that this happened further into your tenure there. And I'm curious and wondering if you'd be willing to share kind of your path to the position that you're in now. And if there are things that you feel either prepared or didn't prepare you along that path to be in the leadership role that you're in specifically in this sector
Hmm.
of need.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my personal work career journey is that I have, for most of my work life, have been really focused on youth work. That's really had been the heart and soul of what I did, really starting when I was a young person myself and got to be engaged in some really wonderful youth leadership programming that and just involved with positive, wonderful adult mentors that had a really significant impact on my life. And that continued to evolve, and the program that I was running that focused on youth leadership development grew and took on a larger focus around workforce development, and then grew to be supporting both youth and young adults in workforce development, and then got combined with an adult workforce. So that was my foray then in terms of working with adults. But that was a throughout all of that experience and really having ongoing relationships with young people, with young adults, with folks of all ages, with families, of
Mm.
really just seeing this core critical common thread that folks who are in survival mode can't thrive.
Right.
And that we have so many incredible people in our community who really are thriving and pushing and growing and learning in so many remarkable ways and are just held back unless our whole communities are held back by lack of equitable access for folks to have the resources to meet their basic needs. And so I've had that passion around that just being provision of basic needs and equitable access to those kinds of resources being such a critical foundation for any social justice work, and providing that in a way that really just is centered around a fundamental belief in goodness of people and the uh, access to basic needs as a basic human right and fostering
Yeah.
dignity and support for everyone. That as I was ready just on a personal level to move on to my next professional challenge, that those were pieces that just really resonated for me and that jumped out as so core to what the Amherst Survival Center did, that made this a really exciting place for me to think about getting to be a part of.
That I didn't realize that about your history, that it was so rooted in working with youth at first, because I think so often around that survival mode and that need, um, we're very focused on adults, and sometimes young people are just sort of along for the ride. And it's easy to forget sometimes that they are being impacted by what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. And so I'm sure for a lot of young people coming to the survival center, even if they're not the one who is, of an age that they're directly talking to or interacting with you and your team, they're still sort of taking in. And so what they're seeing when they come with their parents or their guardian, um, is that empathy and that holism and that love and responsiveness that you're, so they're absorbing that kind of amidst the survival mode, which is so important. And I'm sure is something, because of your history, that really impacts you and that you think about when you see people. I mean, I know you and I have had a chance in the past a little bit to talk about, the future and placemaking and, what else could
Yeah.
Survival Center have. And I know all of that is sort of on hold with COVID. But when you think about the future, or, in the time you don't have to right now, are there other things that you would like to offer through the Survival Center, maybe at those different age levels, that you haven't been able to enact yet?
That's a great question. Um, when I think about my vision for the Amherst Survival Center, and really it's a vision for a role that the Amherst Survival Center can help play in our broader community. I think there are two really key pieces of that for me. The first and foremost is this fundamental food access question. And what that really comes down to me is that as a local community, as a regional community, as a state, as a country, we don't even know the extent of positive impacts that would be
Mm,
possible in our communities and our country if everyone had sufficient access to meet their full nutritional needs without having to piece together so many different things of SNAP benefits that come in on this date and only last for this long. And then if you go to the farmer's market, you can get $5 extra because your points get doubled and go back on HIP. And then you can come to the Amherst Survival Center once, and then you can go someplace else and your kids can get free and reduced lunch. That all of those pieces of the programs that folks are being asked to stitch together to meet their most fundamental basic needs, it makes the provision of their basic needs a full-time job in of
right.
itself. And I think that we don't even know what we're missing out on, in terms of the energy, the time, the experience, the perspective, the knowledge, the money, the health of our community members, of if folks had access to the resources to meet their basic needs, and specifically around food, who would be running for public office? Who would be organizing in their communities? Who would be
What
uh,
an amazing point.
back at school and teaching and just engaged in so many different ways, because there would be that opportunity as a community for us to live much more into our full potential. And I think that ending food insecurity, it seems when you kind of say that, we've become so accustomed to the fact that even in an enormously wealthy country on the global level, that we have such massive income inequity, food insecurity, and that we have so much hunger. It's like we've become accustomed to that, that we think that it has to be, but it's completely within our grasp that that could be ended. It's a question of priorities. It's a question of where we invest our resources on a broader level. And so I think that the Amherst Survival Center's role is to be a part of that larger systematic change, and then in the interim to make sure that we're continuing to focus our efforts on making sure that we are making it as easy and supportive as possible to access as much food as possible by as many people who need it, to be doing that. Um, and then the other really critical piece that the Amherst Survival Center offers is this community component, that is just such
Yes.
an important fundamental thing that the center does, is that this is a place where people come together from so many different walks of life, from different backgrounds, with so many different reasons and motivations for walking through the doors. And there's a real opportunity to further leverage that, to collectively recognize and to address these root causes of food insecurity, of inequity, of racism at this like broader level, that are the underpinnings of the issues that we're looking at. And so I think that now, amidst COVID, is the an important part to time to be doing all of that and moving forward, that there's this incredible community force that can have a broader impact on both on food justice on a larger level, on social justice, like these cores of our mission that really underpin what we're all about.
You bring up such, I think, a crucial point, and I so appreciate everything that you just pointed to. Um, oh my gosh, my brain's going in a million directions. The point that we don't know what these stresses on people in our community are keeping them from doing. I think that kind of connective thought pattern is really important, and is something that sometimes we don't consider, especially if we've not been in survival mode, or we've not had the hardships in our life that kept us from sort of connecting some of those dots. And I do agree that ending food insecurity is within our grasp, and part of ending it is helping everyone in the community, in society, recognize that there are real things being lost, and we have to connect the dots of the sort of cause and effect of that.
Mm-hmm.
You are The work that you do is in such a crucial intersection right now. I mean, I've heard some people say that one of the positive things, which I say with a lot of care, to come out of this time is that people have had so much space during COVID while they're trapped at home, or while they're working, or maybe out of work, to reflect, to stop and look at the things that are happening, and to see them maybe a little more forcefully because of the space to absorb things. So, everything from, you mentioned racism, everything from the Black Lives Matter movement ramping up and becoming really central in our conversations, to questions of food insecurity or inequity. I mean, do you feel that this time of COVID specifically has drawn more attention to the work that you're doing, or drawn attention that you weren't anticipating it drawing to you?
Hmm.
That's a odd question.
Yeah. Well, I do think that especially very early on, as the COVID-19 pandemic was really hitting and grasping hold in this country, what one of the things that I felt like I witnessed happening was this collective sense of vulnerability. And we
Uh,
started to see this phrase of we're all in this together really kind of emerging and coming out in this sense that there was something that was threatening all of us. And I think that the key call then for all of us is to maintain and to continue that sense of common humanity and urgency to work on all of these issues that are impacting, while also and not letting that get lost as we have or pushed to the side as we have now, with a little bit of more time, actually really started to see that we're not all being impacted by this equally, anywhere
right,
close. And that's happening across income levels, and that's happening across health disparities with folks, and that's happening enormously across racial and ethnic divides, that we're seeing that we're not all being impacted by this equally. And so how I think about that is that we need to recognize that in response to COVID, that we are really in this for the long haul, and
yeah,
that there's the immediate public health threat that we're going to continue to deal with for probably a very significant period of time. And then there are also all of these economic ripples of what this is going to be that unfortunately are going to be enormously long lasting. And so that when I see the broader community just outpouring of support for the center, for many other organizations, for social justice movements that are happening, is that we need to recognize that in order for us to really be in this together means being in this together for the duration, and in this together as we confront really unpleasant truths that were completely obvious to so many in our community and country that many of us had blinders on to and have now shed light. And so that being in this together means continuing to be in it as we recognize and highlight all of the ways that this is not impacting all of us in the exact same way, and that's the long-term change that I think there is hopefully an opportunity for all of us to continue working towards.
yeah. That's a really, really good point, and I appreciate you bringing up that phrase because I think that has instigated a lot of consideration of what being in something together really means when everyone is being impacted differently. That's
Yeah.
such a crucial point. I see people are watching online. I want to encourage anyone watching, please feel free to ask questions. This is not just a forum for me to ask. Lev is here and happy to answer questions about the Survival Center. So please feel free to put them up there and I will definitely relay them. Um, I think you mentioned the long haul, and I want to ask if you're open to it a question about students coming back, because I know students are a very large part of your volunteer base. The times that I've gone to volunteer, there were all students there. I think that I've spoken to students for whom that volunteering is really important to them. You know, they take a lot away from it. And I'm curious, and you can feel free to go as deep or not deep as you want, because I know this is a hot button in Amherst right now and question about students coming back and the safety of that. And I know at the same time, your ability to have people there volunteering is limited by social distancing as well. So I'm curious how the university and colleges decision making impacts the survival center?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think that in terms of volunteering, we feel we've known that we would need to adapt and respond to any number of different things that play out. We are right now relying on a much smaller pool of even more regular volunteers, and we have more work study students than we've had in the past, and also
Wow.
um, other folks who from the community who are just being even more consistent, either working longer shifts or working shifts multiple days a week or here almost full time. Because we've, in order to move so much more food through the building in with so many fewer people in order to adhere to social distancing requirements, we have needed to become so much more efficient. And part of what that includes is having a smaller number of people who can learn how to do something on Monday and then do it on Tuesday and Thursday and Friday and the next week, et cetera.
Sure.
As opposed to quite the same level of turnover and that. And so we really, really miss our so many of our longtime and regular volunteers. It does not feel the same to be here without so many of those familiar faces, and are just like so beyond grateful. I feel like I need new vocabulary. We need new words for unprecedented and new words for challenging and new words for kind of grateful or gratitude. But that we for the volunteers who have longtime volunteers who have stepped up really into new, more leadership roles, and also brand new folks who came to us because they were home from work or had different schedules at this time and wanted to be engaged in something and have become really integral parts of what we're doing. So the students will certainly be an important part of that. And I guess the way that I see this, and as we approach this as a broader community, I would encourage us to think about not about sort of pitting one group's activities against another, but that overall as a community, we need to be making collective decisions to reduce community spread, community transmission of COVID in order to allow continued operations of whatever we as a community decide are the most fundamental and critical essential services. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the place that I really look to is where are the opportunities for us to be even more or far more collaborative in that kind of decision making, and at the state level of really prioritizing what is it going to take for us our to keep uh, people able to survive amidst this economy that is so dependent on all of these sectors that right now cannot function as they have been in the past, and that provides for educational opportunities for students of all ages and right all of these different pieces, and it just continues to allow that in a way that that prioritizes the overall health of our community. So I don't see the campuses or the universities as separate from that broader mission
Right.
that we have. And we will certainly look forward to having students who are on campus working with us as work study students and volunteers. And we also know that there are lots of students who attend these schools who are local residents and who many of whom are here working today right now, who have been here through the summer. Yeah. And and that we then have to just be applying precautions at our center and really in any business that's open, because especially with what we know about the potentially long duration of asymptomatic transmission is that we we have to operate in a way that, particularly as this continues into the fall, that there will be people throughout our community who unfortunately are COVID positive, and how do we reduce that transmission in all of our interactions and with really good safeguards.
Yeah, yeah, it's crucial. That must be on your mind constantly. I can only imagine. um,
Yeah.
so the last time we were going to speak to you, you got pulled away, and one of the things that Jan did touch on that I wanted to circle back to is that you were advocating for some community development block grant money from the town. And I just wanted to follow up and see how that advocacy went, and ask, not only about that support, but also other ways that people in the community, in the greater community, can be supporting the Survival Center right now.
Great. Thanks so much. Um, yeah, we were blown away by the outpouring of support from
All
many of you who are
right.
listening, and also in terms of advocating for CDBG. And what CDBG is, it stands for Community Development Block Grant, and it's actually federal funds that get allocated to the state, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and then from there get allocated to towns. And so there's some CDBG funding that Amherst gets to allocate on behalf of the states in regular years. And then this was additional COVID response funds that came, federal funds that came through those same channels. And so what we were advocating for at that point was to have our proposal included in full in the town's request to the state for these federal funds. And so we're really, really appreciative. I think that all of the support from the community worked. The committee did decide to include our full request along with the full request
Awesome.
from the Amherst Chamber and Business Improvement District, and CHD's Family Outreach of Amherst, as well as some other organizations. And so now we're waiting to see how much money the town gets awarded by the state, at which point there'll be another set of decisions for the town to make if they're not awarded the full amount, of how to then allocate what they do get. So certainly we were really pleased by the committee's decision, not only, of course, in terms of inclusion of our request, but really with the proposal in full, and kind of their grappling with how to leverage resources across the town of Amherst to address COVID response in a comprehensive manner. So fingers crossed, we will let all of you know, but right now it's in the hands of the state Department of Housing and Community Development.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And it's good to hear that that was fully funded at this level, because I know a lot of people were advocating for that, and emailing and commenting. And are there other ways that people can be supporting you right now? I mean, I'm sure donations help. Volunteering, it seems, is a little bit sticky, especially if people haven't volunteered before. But are there other ways that you feel people can be supporting the Survival Center, maybe
Yeah.
ways that seem a little intangible, even?
Sure. So, first and foremost is to please spread the word about what we offer. That
Yes.
we know that this crisis is impacting folks across our community in lots of new and different ways, and that there are many people who haven't ever been to the Amherst Survival Center before that are now coming and accessing food, or folks who haven't been before because they lived far away and didn't have a way to get here, and now that we're offering grocery delivery, that's accessible. So it's possible that their economic situation hasn't changed, but that our program shifts that we've responded to at this time are increasing access. So I just want to really make sure that folks know that we are, every day that we're open, providing free hot meals, really, really delicious, good food, as well as daily access to produce and bread. And then also free full grocery shop that folks can either access with a low contact on-site pickup, a scheduled ahead, no contact curbside pickup on site, or a no contact delivery option.
That is
And that
amazing.
is The meal and produce and bread is open to anyone from everywhere. There's no registration process, no eligibility. Everyone is welcome. The full grocery shop in the food pantry is open to residents of 13 towns. That's Amherst, Belchertown, Deerfield, Granby, Hadley, Leverett, Pelham, Shutesbury, South Deerfield, South Hadley, Sunderland, Ware, and Whately, and anyone who's
Wow.
currently homeless. And so and for the food pantry, there are no income caps, there are no citizenship requirements, no ID is required. And it's a lot of really, really good food, great produce, fresh milk and eggs, frozen meat, snacks, non-perishables. And so we really want to make sure that folks know that we are here. We really love feeding people. That's kind of our jam. And so would love for folks for whom that would be helpful to come. So spreading the word in your communities and just letting folks know that that we're here and coming yourself if that's something that would be helpful for you.
Oh, awesome. And that's an amazing service area. I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that you are serving those 13 communities
Yeah,
from Amherst, from North Amherst. Yeah,
yeah.
this is
Um,
amazing.
And another key thing that we're really looking for right now is that we are hiring. We have both with need to expand our programs to meet current need and also following the retirements of a couple of key staff. We would love your support in spreading the word about our open positions. And those can all be seen at amherstsurvival.org/jobs. And we're currently have a listing up for a community meals coordinator to run our kitchen and an operations coordinator to oversee our facilities and equipments and vehicles. And there are going to be 3 other additional positions that will be listed in the coming months. So we're really looking forward to having a bountiful, qualified, diverse, experienced candidate pool to become a part of the center team that's moving us forward on all accounts in the coming years. There's a really important opportunity. Um, and lastly, that absolutely, we would really welcome financial donations in any amount. And folks can donate online at amherstsurvival.org/donate. We are rapidly expanding our food and nutrition programs to provide more food to many more people in new and different and expanding ways. And those things all come at a cost. And so we've been really honored by the community's trust in us and support in us to do those, and are going to continue to ask because it's going to take really sustained commitment for a long duration to continue to support this work.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You guys have so much going on. You have jobs to offer, you have food to offer, an amazing community. We at the Mill District will definitely put the word out there. I think,
Thanks.
yeah, I think there are probably a lot of people in the community. One thing that I hear, and we sort of touched on this a minute ago, but that this time of being at home, or this time of has a lot of people kind of looking at their own life and their own trajectory. Having jobs open and available, it might be, the perfect time for someone who feels like they really want to be in a position that is directly serving. And so that's amazing. I hope you get a lot of really great applicants, and I bet you will. I feel like this is this moment for people to be saying, am I doing what I want to be doing, and do I feel fulfilled by the work that I'm doing? And having an opportunity to assess that is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also say that for folks who are interested in volunteering, to please be in touch. Our volunteer program certainly looks different than it has in the past, and we continue to still be really volunteer powered and volunteer driven. So folks who are interested in volunteering can email Lisa, our amazing volunteer coordinator, at volunteer@amherstsurvival.org as well.
That's awesome. And are there ways for people to volunteer if people are nervous about being there in person? Are there ways to volunteer and support you guys that are either off-site or in an office? Just
Yeah.
yeah.
We do have some volunteer opportunities for folks to deliver food to people. So to drive food, it generally does involve some amount of coming into the building to get the boxes and load them, et cetera, but isn't as much of a sustained period of time. And we also really encourage folks who are interested or curious to reach out and just learn from us what the precautions that we are in place that we have in place. I am confident that at this juncture and with just really continued to learning and growing that we are have some really effective safety measures in place that are really core in what we're doing and the way folks that are understanding. So, and we will absolutely continue to uphold those throughout. So we're happy to answer any specific questions that folks have and talk through some of the details. There are volunteer opportunities that are outdoors because we're distributing lunch and produce outside. And so that's an outdoor open air volunteer opportunity, or setting up those stations in the morning, or volunteering in the building that is in different locations in the building and where there is really solid social distancing in place, as well as, of course, other sanitation precautions and mask wearing and all of those other pieces. So we're happy to talk that through with anybody who's interested and help figure out what a role is that fits.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
that's so good to hear, and I hope people do take you up on at least talking it through if they're feeling or
Yeah.
here, but they're feeling scared or hesitant. It sounds like there's a lot that can be talked about that might make them feel more at ease, which is awesome. We're getting closer to time because I don't want to take up your whole day. I know you clearly have a lot going on, and I don't see questions coming in. So if I could, I would just ask you one more question. Do you have time?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious because I know, every conversation I have right now, it centers a lot on COVID and what's going on. But going back to some of the conversations you and I have had, I think almost a year ago now, is there something that, just in the back of your mind or in the quieter moments when you think about it, is there one thing you could share with us about your vision for the Survival Center and what you might be able to do in the future that you don't do now?
Hmm.
And it can
That's
be
such,
wild. It can be anything.
yeah. Um, I think that I will go back to where I started, which is just a really, when we were talking earlier today, which is a much deeper leveraging of and amplifying of the voices that are a part of this greater Amherst Survival Center community, in terms of that being a powerful lever for change on many of the root causes of food insecurity and inequity that we're looking at. And there are pieces of that are in play, and so much more opportunity and places for that to go. But I think it's hard for me right now, honestly, to think about some specific program or service, because there are many pieces that are really core to what we have done that we're not doing right now. And we really look forward to someday having our dining room be open and being able to
Yeah.
welcome folks just so much more abundantly in terms of volunteer opportunities and all of those, and our community activities and all of those pieces. And I think this piece around really engaging our broader community in leadership and supporting these efforts is a piece that we both have an opportunity to figure out what that looks like right now, and then to, of course, have that continue to evolve as the realities of our daily life continue to change as COVID shifts moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wish that for you guys as well, to get back to the full spectrum of things, but you're doing such an incredible job being responsive. I mean, really, right from the beginning, watching your team adapt has just been incredible, and hearing from the community the different ways that you have met everyone where they are and really continue to just do what is in your power to do has been inspiring. So thank you, Lev, and your whole team.
Yes, big round of applause to all of the folks who that I have the honor of getting to work with. They have been just unbelievable throughout this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything
Yeah.
else you want to say before I release you to the rest of your very, very important day?
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Thanks folks for listening, and thank you so much, Hannah, for taking the time to talk. It's a pleasure to get to connect with you.
It's mine. I really, really appreciate it. So, thank
Yeah.
you all, everyone who's watching. We appreciate you. Check out the Survival Center. Spread the word. There's so much going on. Everything is on their website, and you can, if you're thinking about volunteering, call and talk to them if you're nervous about it. But there's so much to be done, and this is a great way to be meeting the need. So,
Yeah.
you are the best, literally.
Right back at you. Take care, Hannah. Talk to you soon.
Okay.